like these National Guard threats and takeovers of all these, Democratic-run cities. Starting in now, we talked last week about how Trump was targeting Chicago. You guys have heard of a Chicago-style hot dog, right? With the bright green relish, they put the tomatoes on it, right? Okay, well, we've all heard of Chicago-style hot dog. Have you heard of a Chicago-style taco? This week, Trump backs off his Chicago National Guard threats. Chicago leaders are doing a victory lap after standing up to Trump, who announced he's sending troops to fight crime in Memphis instead. So, because of the unified opposition from community leaders and elected officials in Chicago and throughout the state, the Trump administration backed down from its threats of sending in the National Guard to Chicago. That is the statement from Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson. So, if you recall, Trump first floated this idea in August, calling the city a disaster and a hellhole, when in reality, Chicago has seen a nearly 30% reduction in homicide and a 38% reduction in shootings since last year. But if you zoom out, it has been less than a week since Trump posted, Chicago was about to find out why it's called the Department of War, and threatened helicopters and fire and fury on this American city. And by midweek, with pushback from Johnson and Pritzker and others, they decided they were going somewhere more friendly instead, and that place is Memphis. So, calling the city, quote, deeply troubled, Trump suggested the mayor and Tennessee governor were happy with the action, which could include the National Guard and anybody else we need, according to the president. Now, Tennessee's a red state. Mayor Bill Lee is Republican. Mayor Paul Young, a Democrat, said at his Friday afternoon press conference that it was not done at his request, asserting that he learned in the morning that the president and governor are looking to bring federal resources into the city. He said he did not ask for the National Guard and does not think this is the way to drive down crime. He does say, listen, FBI, DEA, ATF, great, fine, bring them in, but I do not want the National Guard in my city. D. Tough line for the governor to walk, or for the mayor to walk there, huh?
Well, I suppose so. There's so many things wrong with this action that it's, we don't have enough time to talk about it, but let me just spell it out. EPSTEIN. This is a distraction so that you will quit talking about Epstein. And there are many cities, this can go on and on and on forever. The National Guard is not to be used in that way. The National Guard is supposed to be run by the state, not by the Fed. I find it interesting that during January 6th, oh my God, I can't send in the National Guard as president. Suddenly, the National Guard can go to all kinds of cities because we're going to help with crime. When in fact, all it's really done is drive down business participation. Ask the restaurants in DC how happy they are with the National Guard walking around the street with guns and tanks. They're not happy at all. This is a misuse of federal dollars, of our tax dollars. I think I heard Chris call it social money. It is a misuse of our social money. It has no rationale except as distraction.
Chris, it's the most expensive, stupidest way to deal with crime, right? I mean, again, if you want to look at it just from a shameless cost savings standpoint, dealing with the causes of crime at a root level is a hell of a lot cheaper than sending in the military.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And but I think we can't deny the basic crime statistics of that, how much crime has gone down in DC ever since deploying the National Guard. Even the DC mayor was in support of it after being hesitant to Trump about it at first. So, but I'm not saying that this should be the model for the entire country, right? Trump has the authority to put the National Guard in DC because that's his legal authority. He doesn't have the authority just to spray and send to other states, right? He has to be invited and requested for that to happen. But I think the biggest thing here, and, my sister lives in DC. I have a lot of friends who live in DC who are saying that, it's cleaner. Doesn't seem to be as much crime and stuff going on. But I believe it's more of the deterrent aspect. It is having those military men and women and personnel out there, being just a presence there is deterring a lot of crime. And they're not coming down and they're not putting people at gunpoint and doing things like that. But just their presence, I think, is the biggest deterrent. So not to send the National Guard everywhere else, but how do we help police departments present some kind of deterrent like we are in DC right now without needing the National Guard? That would be my next step for local precincts across the country. This is obviously working in some way, shape, or form as a deterrent. So how can we embody this without needing the National Guard here?
Well, you know what? I'm going to come back on that and say, if I lived in Iran and I stole something, they'd cut off my friggin' hand. That's a wonderful deterrent, but I don't want to live like that.
No, of course not. But but if you commit a crime in the United States, then you will obviously you would be convicted of it. So that's a law there. It's not a law here. It's not saying
justice system. We do not need to normalize having armed people standing in the streets. That's third world crap. I want nothing.
We also need to figure out how to be able to bring down crime at the same time, and it can't be a one-off.
You do that by not passing bills that defund law enforcement, like the big beautiful bill did. There was billions of dollars within that bill that is defunding law enforcement across this country. That is a fact. You don't do it by defunding mental health agencies,
mental health stuff,
and other organizations that are geared and towards people trying to help them in a community where they feel suppressed, where they feel that they have no way out because wages aren't keeping up with inflation and so many other things, where they aren't given a fair chance. That's not how you do it. You don't cut mental health. You don't cut health care. You don't do that. Sending the military in and thinking it's a good thing because there's a result from it is, asinine. That is a third world country, like what Dee said. And if that is people's belief that that's what needs to be done in our country, well, then you're the problem in our country.
Okay. At the end of the day, we are still a country.
You'll see the solutions that should be done. Just like in Chicago, they're investing in mental health and behavioral health. That's what they're doing there. Their numbers are dropping drastically because of the things that Governor Pritzker and Mayor Brandon Johnson are doing. It's proven that if you have somebody in office that's effective and does the right things, it will help people out. But you don't take money away and services and agencies that are designed to help people because you think they're all entitlement programs.
I'm not disagreeing.
I didn't say you particularly,
I know, but
what's happening.
I still can go back on it and say, I'm not disagreeing with that point at all. But at the same time,
I do want to move on.
Laws, we need to be able to follow them.
Yeah, we're running out of time. Football.
Yeah, no, I wanted to mention a couple other things on these lines. Memphis isn't the only place. The Trump administration is also planning on sending National Guard troops to Louisiana, both New Orleans and Baton Rouge. And also this week we got word from the Supreme Court that the roving ICE raids in LA are totally cool and that they can continue doing this. The justices ruled 6-3 along ideological lines, as you assumed they would, to put a hold on a federal judge's order that reined in what critics called these roving raids. In her dissent, Justice Sonia Sotomayor wrote, "We should not have to live in a country where the government can seize anyone who looks Latino, speaks Spanish, and appears to work a low-wage job. The government, and now the concurrence, has all but declared that all Latinos, U.S. citizen or not, who work low-wage jobs are fair game to be seized at any time, taken away from work, and held until they provide proof of their legal status to the agent's satisfaction." She wrote, Memphis, New Orleans, Baton Rouge, look forward to this coming to a neighborhood near you.